Welcome.
So, back at it again with the Broke Homies podcast. Today, I have a friend of mine from the Bay Area. It's been a while since I actually talked to you, Albert. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me here. It's cool to be on this podcast finally.
Yeah, so I've talked about you on the podcast so many different times, and I've talked to you about the podcast a bunch of different times, but this is the first time that we're actually doing something together, so it's really cool. Super excited. But
yeah, I'm super excited to be here as well. And it's I know I met you a long time ago through unconventional means, right? You rented an Airbnb in my house, and then you took that and went on to the professional career that you have now.
Yeah. Those are pretty rough times. Remember, I think, what was it? It's probably back in August. Let's see, like, maybe March-ish of 2019, something like that. Like, it was towards the beginning of 2019, I think. But
yeah, it was.
Yeah. But yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So, just a little bit of background. I had gotten laid off of my job, and my girlfriend at the time and I, we ended up getting this Airbnb. Just because we had like an interview somewhere. Up close to where your Airbnb was, so we happened to just rent out your Airbnb, and then we met.
Yep.
And then, by the way, the advice that you gave us for job seeking actually ended up landing her a job. So she actually got a job.
Oh, that's amazing!
Yeah, so she actually got the job.
Awesome.
So yeah, that actually worked out a lot better than we expected it to work out. It was pretty cool.
That's great. Yeah, that's great.
Cool. And so speaking of jobs, you are, for lack of better words, the job man. You are you are like the Bay Area job man. You are, Albert's list.
People think I'm like Santa Claus. I come with a big sack of jobs. Although most of the jobs that I give to other people come by way of the people who are in my community and the recruiters who are sharing those opportunities. So really, the thanks goes to them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's actually whenever I actually went to the Bay Area and then I met you, I was amazed at how big the community was. It's like, what, 44,000 people now?
Yeah, we're up at 44,000, 45,000, and if you add everything up from what we have in Southern California, Texas, New York, and then Sacramento, we're above like 50,000 people at that point.
Oh wow. 50,000 people looking for jobs, providing different jobs, referrals. And the content that you post on there is excellent. It's like very, very, relative and related to like, the job market in the Bay Area, especially. I mean, I get you have a lot of other places that you're working at too. But it's a very managed and streamlined group. I really like that about Albert's list.
Yeah. And one of the things that's really just, that you really don't hear or think enough about during the course of your career is how knowing about what's going on around you is crucial, right? Mm-hmm. And that's some of the things that we do on a monthly basis include a jobs conversation with a University of New Mexico economics professor who really brings in the numbers. And then when you have things like acquisitions or major layoffs, those are all things to keep abreast of. And, those are important to really pay attention to because we don't live in this world anymore where you can pretend like you can just live in your own silo and nothing will affect you. Unfortunately, everything and anything will affect you. Mm-hmm. And being more informed, even if you do have a job, which, a lot of people in that group do have a job already, is only going to make you a more powerful job seeker when you're back out on the market, or even just sharing information with family and friends.
Right. Yeah. like the off time where you're not looking for a job, which is whenever you're just working whatever job that you have right now. So that'd be like me right now. I'm working as an SDR. But let's say I have, minimal job seeking experience because I just ended up landing an SDR position right out of college. The time that I'm spending while I'm an SDR, I'm not looking for a job actively. But if I'm on Albert's list, then I'm getting information on how to start my job search whenever I'm looking to like move into an account management or an account executive position. And so it's not just like a referral entity, but it's also like an educational entity too, which is like the great thing about Albert's List. It's and you provide this information essentially for free. It's not even like you don't charge anyone anything for it. You just make it yourself and you do it.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of it coming from just from like news sites and such. And, like the other thing of it, I was just thinking as you were mentioning this, is just how dynamic and how ongoing somebody's job search and career are now these days. Mm-hmm. It used to be, and I don't know if your parents were like this, but, my parents, at least my mother, spent 30 years at a Fortune 500 company. Mm-hmm. And she was there from pretty much the late 80s until 2015. Mm-hmm. And, that's the story of a lot of people, right? A lot of parents who, maybe went into a company in like 1950, 1960, and then they ended up, retiring like 40 years later in 2000, 2005, 2010. Mm-hmm. And they only knew one job for their entire life. And they're looking at people like you and me, and they're like, how come Albert or Tyler, can't keep a job? And, it's not our fault anymore because the economy moves so quickly. And mm-hmm. so, whereas our parents had to pound the pavement and go door to door, right, and, do it that way, and maybe they could get, 10 job applications a day. On the other hand, we're doing this constant job search. It's, you're in sales, so you understand the whole concept of always be closing. Yeah. And in this career of ours, we have to always be networking, always be prospecting new opportunities and just seeing what's out there. Mm-hmm. And, Albert's List is kind of a microcosm of that, because every day we see tens and tens of posts from job seekers and recruiters, and that helps you build that entire profile about the state of the economy. Right. And since all this whole COVID thing began, it's really interesting to observe. And we've done some data studies on just some of the jobs that come through Albert's List on a regular basis. And the reality of it is, right, the more essential you are to the survival of a business, the more essential you are in general. Mm-hmm. And your, survivability is up there. And, these are people who do the marketing, engineering, sales, and, operational based kind of jobs. I know I kind of, deviated there a little bit, but yeah, those are just some of the initial thoughts just based on what you said.
Yeah. And what's, super interesting too is that, with Albert's List, you have a variety of different kinds of recruiters that recruit for different kinds of positions. And so you and the team, which I'm a part of as well, I help with, I say help, but what I do is I just kind of come in there once in a while and I post memes. But
memes are important. Like, people need humor to really diffuse the stress that job hunting causes. I mean, you did a lot of job seeking yourself, I think, right before you went to Texas, and so that stuff just makes your head spin if you're doing it after a while and not getting the results that you want.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'll be honest, like a lot of the information that I got on like what to do with resumes, how to network and find recruiters, find contacts for the jobs that I want. A lot of that came through Albert's List. A lot of the education, a lot of the networking, a lot of that was with Albert's List. I think.
That's good. Yeah. And I mean, I had a friend from college who messaged me the other day out of the blue randomly. Hadn't heard from her in a couple months. She said she'd been wanting to switch jobs. And she was like, hey, I landed a new job and I just wanted to let you know that all those resume workshops you were doing on Albert's List really helped. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know you watched that stuff, but that's cool.
Oh my goodness! And you have a lot of viewers whenever you do your stream. Because the thing is that you do live streams for like resume
We do,
reviews.
yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have one coming up on Tuesday, and you mean one of the other ongoing ones that we do, and is our Monday night mock interviews. We bring in somebody who's a career coach, and they also do recruiting for a Fortune 500 firm, and it's. And we started at the beginning of COVID too, right? And so we started doing that at the beginning of COVID because we just realized, people are probably struggling. They probably have questions, and we're getting a little bit of an audience on these interviews now. We just, the way we describe it is we call it like getting in the gym. It's these mock interviews are like working out. And the more you work out, the stronger you'll become. And you can definitely apply that to job searching as well, because, interviewing and the whole job searching part is like going out on a bunch of dates. You're not going to be able to woo every single suitor, but, as long as you get one suitor, that's pretty much enough, at least for the most of us.
Yeah. I like that little clause that you put in there with the, at least for the most of us.
Yeah,
that's just pretty funny. But the interesting part is that job seeking is kind of it's like an interim job function that every person has to do at one point.
It really is.
It's like a set of skills that you like, resume building. For a lot of different jobs, you gotta type cover letters. You gotta network. I mean, because and there's also like what was the percentage of jobs that you get through like a warm connection? It was like a ridiculous amount.
The number that I've seen throughout the years is that like 90% of jobs are found through mutual connections.
Yeah.
And that, most of the jobs that exist out there in the job market today aren't even posted. And, I've been on the other side of this where, I have friends in the Bay Area who run funded startups. Mm-hmm. One of them is run by one who's, a friend in college. And like, she comes to me before she puts these jobs up and is like, hey, I don't really want to have to post this job to LinkedIn. Do you know somebody? And so she'll give me a really general overview. Put the job on LinkedIn. It does. Yeah, it does. I mean, like monster.com charged something like $300. LinkedIn charges another like $500, and it can be pretty insane. And so she comes to me and, she's like, I need an operations person. And so who do you know? And so I go to my LinkedIn, I search around for a couple. There are people who message me and they're like, hey, can you be on the lookout? And so for just this one time, I had this guy that I knew from high school. I think the last time I had like a cogent, clear conversation with him was like 8th grade algebra.
Wow.
And it's funny too. And I say this because I remember where I sat in the classroom and I remember where he sat in the classroom, and he and I hadn't spoken in at least, 8th grade algebra was 2002, so 2001. So it had been at least 10 to 13 years since we last spoke. And he had reached out to me and he was like, hey, I'm looking to make a move. I've been in my current company for a while. What can you do? And so a couple of days later, my friend from college who now runs the startup that's funded in the Bay Area comes to me and is like, so who do you know? I'm looking for somebody in exactly the same role that this other guy was looking to get out of. And so
you played Cupid there.
I was playing Cupid there, and my friend from high school or middle school tells me later on, he ends up getting the offer, and he's like, yeah, my life's about to change. And so, I generally don't think about these things too much, but we're definitely in the life-changing business here at Albert's List. It's like because having a job is a huge economic boost for anybody,
right?
Just like former President Ronald Reagan used to say, right? The best type of welfare is a job. And so Whether it's an entry level job where you're making, $20 an hour, or whether you're like a software developer making six figures, all of it helps because you make money, that money goes back into the economy, and everything just gets better. And, the work that we do at Albert's List, I'm proud to say, at least contributes a little bit of a sliver to the economic benefit of both locally, statewide, and in the United States. So I can dig it.
I can dig it. And that's another interesting thing that you were talking about is with it's really important to find opportunities that to pick your opportunities, and that how do I put it? That gives you a career path and the skills that you need in order to get to the next position that you want to. So it's really, really important to be selective about what kind of jobs that you want, because if you want to get into, let's say, like an account executive role, then you shouldn't start as an accountant.
On one hand it is. On the other hand, I think it's gotten to such a point where if you're able to tell that story and you're able to really articulate where you've been and how you being in that whatever place has helped contribute to your life story, then you can do pretty well. Like I remember yesterday on Albert's List, I actually posted an anonymous question from a new grad who said something along the lines of how they had majored in software engineering and they had a tough time getting a job. But then, a friend of a friend who was like a chief revenue officer wanted to interview them for a sales engineering role. And it was really interesting seeing all the responses, right? Where it's like, some were like, you always take the interview. Other people were like, if you're a really top-notch software engineer, don't waste your time. And I'm just thinking, that's really interesting. And really at the end of the day, it comes down to how well you interview and how well you articulate it. If all you see for yourself is this like straight line where, you went from A to B, B to C, C to D, and that was just a general way of going it, then fantastic, right? Like
or in this case, B to B,
the way
I guess.
that you're going to go in your life someday, Tyler, is you're an SDR, you're going to become an account executive, then you're going to become a senior account executive, a sales manager, a director of sales, and then whatever's above all that. But let's say someday, in the middle of being that senior account executive, you decide that maybe marketing is really interesting because all of a sudden you found that in your attempt of being a senior account executive, you've discovered like using ads to reach out to prospective customers. And now you want to be a digital marketing manager. Now, for most managers, I think that actually creates a pretty compelling story. And so, in the world of this, in this brave new world of jobs and everything of that sort, you really have to be able to grow that level of flexibility and that that growth mindset and attitude. Where if you go the traditional route, fantastic. But if you went to school in history and then you became a chef, and then you went from being a chef to a software engineer, and then you went from being a software engineer to a marketing manager, That's the beauty of modern careers, at least in the United States.
You can cultivate your own narrative.
You can wake up, one day and decide that you want to be someone else, and you can be that someone else.
Very much so. You have your own personal narrative, and you're responsible for conveying that to whatever person that is the hiring manager that you're interviewing with. And it's really interesting. It's really surprising what information that you're withholding in an interview is information that is relevant to what the interviewer wants to hear. I mean, there's I think one thing that so you're talking about the whole sales engineer.
It's a back and forth, that interview process. It's a back and forth for sure. But the more authentic you can be, and the less you have to answer questions like, what is your greatest strength and weakness? Or what animal would you be if you could be something other than a human? Outside of those kinds of questions, I think you can really get a lot of mileage out of an interview and really see yourself to success if you do it right.
And so you're talking about that sales engineer, the anonymous ask, and I actually read that one, and I talked to a guy on there that had some knowledge. Because the thing is, the sales engineer role was a role that I was interested in as well. However, all the resources that I see on just based off of what I've Googled and looked at for becoming a sales engineer is written from a perspective of going from an engineer, so like a software developer or mechanical engineer, to being a sales engineer. So there is no path, generally speaking, that I've seen from going from a sales person to a sales engineer, which I thought was interesting because, well, if you can get the technical knowledge, then you can absolutely become a sales engineer. And this, so there's like a different gentleman on there that basically told me like, yeah, you can get into a technical sales position and then you can keep working on, like, you can continue your education, get some more technical knowledge at a specific company on a specific topic, right? So let's say like you're working with, you sell semiconductors, for example, and you don't know anything about semiconductors whenever you go into a company that makes semiconductors. But as you start selling semiconductors, you start working on your knowledge base of what all goes into semiconductors in general, not just how to sell them. And as you grow that knowledge, you can find yourself into a sales engineer role, even if you start as a salesperson, which is an unconventional path for that specific position, it seems, but is a completely possible path. And I found that information through a person that I met on Albert's List because I couldn't find it on Google. So there's a lot of value there that I didn't expect.
Yeah, one of the things that makes Albert's List truly unique in that regard is that you're going to be able to talk to professionals, and you can definitely break down that wall to get there too, right? Because in the traditional world of stuff, you have recruiters on one side, you have job seekers on one side, and they seem to pass by each other in the night. And that's just not cool at all because, recruiters want to make money and job seekers want to make money. Mm-hmm. And so we've done our little part to really lower the walls for that and the barriers for that conversation. And it's good to see recruiters and job seekers talking to each other. Mm-hmm. Granted, it's on Facebook, but, still it's, I've been told that, some people log into Facebook solely for Albert's List reasons.
Right.
And so, that's also pretty cool to hear that sometimes people only come on Facebook for Albert's List and to hunt for jobs.
Yeah. That's a huge compliment. It's like, yeah, I don't even use this social media, but I made it just for the value that you provide through Albert's List, which is like that's like such a compliment, like your community is the reason why I use a whole social network. It's amazing. But so here's the thing. How big did you expect Albert's List to get whenever you started it? So a little bit backstory. I know that you've been a content marketer of sorts for a very, 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 very long time. So I'm assuming that this was a part of something that you were working on with, like, okay, well, how do I grow my content marketing knowledge? Was that
it really didn't start as anything, honestly.
No?
I just wanted to find a way to give back to people.
Okay.
I'd been getting all these jobs from these recruiters, and I was like, I don't know what to do with these, but maybe I'll create a Facebook group. And I was really bored and disengaged at work that day. And so I created this Facebook group, and I don't think I expected this to go above like 5,000 people.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it would gain the traction that it would have gained. And so I expected it to stay kind of small. But Facebook did its thing. They really started emphasizing groups. And, early on I had another admin who was co-running the community with me. It was just this person and me, and he was helping growth market it early on. And, we went from like 5,000, and then I remember we hit 6,000, and I thought that was crazy. And then we hit like 10,000, and we thought like, whoa, okay, this could be something. And then, a couple of years ago when we hit like 25,000, I was like, geez, there's something here. And so, coming all the way double to that now, all the way to 45, 47, 50,000, every single 1,000 that we get by is kind of a crazy number at this point, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's pretty surreal, huh? Because I remember even I think whenever I came to the Bay Area, so that would have been like I met you probably in like February or March or something like that. I think if I'm not mistaken, I think you're about like 34,000, 33,000, something like that.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the things that I love is that like Albert's List, the main Facebook group itself at 44,000 is larger than a lot of towns in the United States. So, I'll go by one of these little towns, in between the Bay Area and the Central Coast where my girlfriend lives. And, here's a town with like 1,750 people, or another town with like 6,300 people. And I'm just thinking, Albert's List could fit 6 times in this town. That's pretty cool.
Is so insane. It's such a weird thought when you put it into perspective, when you like look at the numbers and you're like, oh, wait, population 30,000? Albert's List could declare war against this and just take over the city.
I mean, my girlfriend's town of Paso Robles has, I think, like 32 or 33,000 in it. So, they vote for a mayor and like 5 city council members every single couple of years. And so we could definitely be a functioning town. Or if you actually took all the job seekers and recruiters in that group, you could create a mid-sized Fortune 500 company too. 44,000, 45,000 employees.
Yeah, I was baffled by the numbers, and I'm continuously baffled by how big it is. But
yeah, I mean, where you're at, just go driving around Austin and look at some of those small towns and see how much bigger the Bay Area group is than that small town.
Yeah, definitely. So let me ask you this: how many hours a week do you think you put into Albert's List? Like, I know you're up at odd hours, working on Albert's List. You're on constantly. You're super responsive to people. You're tagging people all the time. How, like, just if you were to like just ballpark guess, like how many hours a week you put into Albert's List? What do you think?
I would say I put anywhere between 10 to 15 hours a week. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
10 to 15 hours a week, and that's consistently with your whole job at Oracle, which is like you're still working at Oracle, right?
I do. Okay. Yeah, I do. That's a 40 to 50 hour a week job. And, honestly, like in today's world where we don't have any commutes anymore and everything's just kind of fused in together, I don't really count. It just feels like I work 60 to 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
And like, it's fantastic because I like what I do. I love marketing HR software, and then I love being able to help job seekers on the back end, and inform them of the trends that are ongoing that really helps add to their job search experience. And so it's a really great. It's really great, to be in both at once.
Right. Yeah. It just kind of fuses together, huh? Because like I guess right now, are you working from home with? Okay, I figured. So it just seems like I bet for you it's like it's just work. It's like there's a period of time where you start work and then like you just keep working for the entire day. Pretty much is what it feels like. I'm imagining.
There are days where I'm up at 8 a.m. and I get up probably to eat and go to the bathroom and hop on this spin bike that I have here. And I don't end my day until like 10 or 11 o'clock. And there's just a lot to do every single day. Content creation on both ends, answering questions, posting other people's questions. And, it's an adventure for sure.
Definitely. I mean, and I can attest to like the content that you make with Albert's List. It's really cool how it's generated by the people that are on Albert's List. It's like it's you take the information that's being provided and you're like, well, how can I turn this into like actionable insights or information that's useful for other people? And you basically just kind of it's almost like you prospect around, you find gold, and then you just refine it, and then you post it back on Albert's List, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is super great information. It's super useful." And
I mean, it just goes to show, right, that how much of the economy is run by people, and not by computers or anything else. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just how it is, right? Like people think that job seeking is, oh, let me get on a website and submit a couple of things here, and maybe I get lucky.
Spray and pray, right?
And yes, the spray and pray method, I used it early on in my career. No doubt your listeners have used it in their career too, because, this is what people out there in the world, whether they're educators or our parents or our relatives, have told us that they need to do. And then we just hope and pray that somebody wants to hire us. And in reality, what it is that, in order to get a job, you probably need to know a recruiter or a hiring manager, and then you network with them, you build a relationship, you demonstrate your thought leadership and your skills, and then based on all that, when an opportunity opens up, you're able to move forward and make something of it.
Right. And the thing is, the spray and pray method, it seems like you're putting a lot of trust and a lot of power into the interim, like the intermediary, like the middlemen. So they'd be like all of the, like the LinkedIns, the Indeeds, the Monsters. Whereas, if you really wanted to maintain power for yourself, then you would, the networking and the meeting new people is going to be a way that you can keep a little bit more control over your job search. Because if you're just going on LinkedIn all the time, then you're basically, for lack of words, like better words, like kind of like a servant to LinkedIn. It's like it is dictating the course of your life and the career that you get. Whereas it doesn't have to be that way. You can meet new people, and then you can have those people refer you to different jobs, which is more effective too. So it's it's a way to take more control of your own journey. Which I know is like a big thing that you like to push with people, is like, hey, this is your job search, dude. Like, this is your journey and you are in charge of it. And I'm just here to give you some information and some leads on where you might be able to find those opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's how the new job search is today. So, in order to make the most of it, you gotta take that perspective and take that view to it.
Definitely. So, you've been a job seeker at several points in your career. Because
I have,
you have a job. So.
In more points than probably I'd like to be, but yes, many times in my career, absolutely.
I can second that statement with all of my heart. You saw me looking for a job, unemployed, broke, at like in like a room in your nice house in the Bay Area. You've seen me there, so I totally I can definitely relate with that. So how was it like with content marketing? You work at one of the most successful, largest companies in the US and in the world in general now. Like, how was it for you to like get to that point? Like, what was your journey like?
Oh, so I started about 10 years ago working in social media marketing. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of what was hot back then. Everybody wanted to have high influence on clout. People thought that, Facebook and Twitter were the future. They were both very nascent and young. And that's just how it was back then. And then, as I went in through that career, I just realized how much I didn't like it. It was just, you always had to keep up with everything going on. And I just felt like I needed to move into something else. And so after a little bit of finagling there, I went into product marketing. And, like the other thing that's also just really cool when it comes to all of this is how much marketing requires writing. Oh, and goodness, I enjoy writing a lot. Uh-huh. And so being able to get into that was always good. And so being able to work in that realm, was awesome. And so I ended up moving into that. And so I've kind of just navigated between that and, product marketing and content writing for the last couple of years.
Right.
And so, landed where I was now, and it was really good. It's been really good so far.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing that a lot of people that are that don't know what goes into a marketing, like a digital marketing type position, they don't realize that you have to be a copywriter, an email marketing specialist. You have to be a social media specialist. You have to be capable of doing SEO and like looking up. There's so many different skills that go into marketing. People think that marketing is like this one skill. It's not one skill. It's like you have to be able to do absolutely everything. It's mind-boggling. And I know that a lot of people that get out of college, for me, for example, right? I got out of college. I went to school for English, and I decided, I want to get myself a marketing job. I did not know the beast that I was taking on whenever I decided that I wanted to be a content marketer. Goodness, the amount of education that you need in order to get yourself in that kind of position is mind-boggling. Like my friend, my partner for this podcast, his name is Daniel. He just landed a part-time content marketer gig after having worked in content marketing for essentially like 2 to 3 years with his dad at his his project. He worked at his dad owned a kind of like a magazine. Biblion magazine is what it's called, and he got a lot of the skills through that. He was on this podcast and gaining a lot of skills doing that, and he ended up having to struggle through it a lot. Now he knows how to do anything from, he's a great audio engineer as well. Like he knows how to mix like all the audio work that we do for Broke Homies. He does, and this is something that he had to do for his marketing intern apprenticeship that he had with one of the people that he met through Acadium, which I'm sure you're familiar with Acadium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think with that, really marketing, I would say and also, it's just like software development in the industry, where it's like, in order to break in, you have to prove these days that you're able to do a lot of the work on your own. And so being able to go into the industry also requires the ability to do that work on your own, and then have not necessarily have some proof points of projects, but just be able to show that you're willing to do the work. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's difficult to break into marketing in general, and so being able to do that is huge.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah. I know with depending on what industry you're in, a lot of your copy is going to change. A lot of what you write. A lot of what you focus on, a lot of the methods, a lot of the channels that you use to reach out to people and to push content. You might not even be working with there's a variety of different content that you could be working with as a content marketer, and that's just the content marketer position. Like there, not to mention like there's like product marketing, which is like a whole different beast that I'm just kind of like unfamiliar with at this point. It's like wasn't able to venture into that. Actually, could you tell me about product marketing? I actually don't know too much about what goes into product marketing.
Yeah, so product marketing, the best way to describe it is kind of being at the center of marketing, engineering, sales, and customer success. Mm-hmm. And in that case, you're really at the center of being able to launch a product and promote it so that everyone who may be interested in it can learn more about what it is that your company is offering, and then be able to really take that towards take your company to the next level. So launching a product means being able to chase all the sheep, or I guess the wolves, or whatever you're chasing, to launch a product, write the content that sales can understand, position the product in a way that engineering can agree to, and then be able to reach out to customers and then have an understanding of how they're doing with everything. And so it's a very being in the middle of everything type of job, and is really interesting in that regard.
Yeah, very much so. It's requires a lot of communication. I'm sure
it requires a lot of communication.
Liaison work, basically,
correct.
Between like multiple different shareholders and parties is what it seems like. It's like you have to be able to communicate with like within the company, and then you have to take the ideas that you have within the company and then somehow put that into like a clarified form that you would present to other people outside of the company, which sounds stressful to say the least. Yeah. So let's see. And I know that marketing is something that you work with. Like that's something that you work with as like on a personal basis. But for the other job positions and lots of other job functions that you have that you post on Albert's list, I'm sure how did you go about learning what other like positions or other job functions would require? Like, was it just you reading like lots of long nights where you found articles and you're like, okay, well for a mechanical engineer, like they have to be able to do this, that, and the other thing. Like, how did you get that knowledge base, augment that?
Yeah, so, I think a lot of credit goes to career coaches that I've worked with over the last couple of years. Right. And so being able to really absorb a lot of their knowledge has been really good for me. So, I definitely stand on the shoulders of giants, of people who know a lot more than I do, and are able to articulate what it is that it is. And then, on the other half, it's a lot of reflection and thinking. Back in 2016 to 2018, when I was driving back and forth between the Bay Area and Southern California, for, speaking engagements up here in the Bay Area, I really started thinking about, what does it mean for a job seeker to get a job these days?
Right.
We have a lot of individuals who are on Albert's list, as you well know, and a lot of them are struggling in their job search, and they're always asking questions and stuff like that. And one of the things that I really kind of centered myself around was, how come there are job seekers who find jobs sooner than other job seekers? And why are these job seekers able to experience that level of success?
Right.
And what are those things? And so I went to work and really just thought it through and thought it over. And, that's really helped inspire a lot of the framework of what exactly it means to be that successful job seeker.
Right.
The concept that I've come up with is called the hiring hierarchy, which is kind of like similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and what it is that people that companies and hiring managers look for out of job seekers. And so really working with that has helped me understand a lot of what it is that matters. And so with that in mind, I'm continuing to learn and continuing to discover what it is that is of interest. And so, yeah, it's all very fascinating for sure. Yeah. And so my knowledge continues to grow. We do webinars almost every week on Albert's list. And so, I learn from people who come in to our community based on that as well. And there's just always new strategies,
so
new ways.
Based on
and it's really great.
So like based on like like people that have come into your community based on like helping people find jobs or like giving information on
helping people, providing insights, providing their thoughts. Yeah, it's really fascinating.
Yeah, and
yeah.
So you got a lot of so basically the information that you got was a lot of it was through talking to people that are a part of your community, because I mean the amount of human capital, the amount of potential with the people that are on Albert's list, especially with like a place like the Bay Area that's so dynamic, the amount of information, the wealth of information that's on Albert's list is insane. And so it's basically like like you're just reading stuff that people are posting over there, and you're like learning about like, okay, well, I did not know that that this company here was hiring, or that there was a new hiring practice, or like you're learning about trends in the market, you're learning about trends in interviewing, you're learning about trends in different job functions with and this is stuff that if you don't read and interact with your community on Albert's list, you'd be in the dark about. Like this is information that you'd absolutely have to lean on your own community to provide you with. So that's like the community giving back to you the same way you give back to the community, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. So I mean, that's I could say that my success is because others have also invested within me, and so being able to have that kind of benefit is really important. And so, absolutely.
So this is basically this is the last question that I really have for like real question that I have for Albert's list. But what do you want to do with Albert's list? Because the thing is, Albert's list has been around for a long time. It is a full-fledged startup at this point. Something that you did not expect. And I've talked to you a couple of times about ideas about what you're going to do here and there, but what do you want with Albert's list? What do you want to do with Albert's list?
Yeah, I want to become both an offense-focused business and a business where we can help people learn job seeker education in partnership with other organizations, around the Bay Area, whose missions that we also agree with. And so as we get into the new year here and we look into next year, we're very much looking at creating courses. We're creating, more career fairs, more events, webinars that people can learn from. And then, working with companies who we want to really put out there and, have them sponsor us and really be a part of the Albert's List journey and the Albert's List experience. And so it's very much a hands-on, people-focused approach to things. As much as I love the idea of creating software and all of that stuff, it doesn't necessarily work out that way as easily because, that's a little bit harder. So, we'll go with a model that allows us to really work with people and get to know other people.
Very good. And so the companies that you've worked with at job fairs, insane. That's actually one thing that's something that we did not cover at all. The actual real life social events that we have with Albert's list, because like COVID kind of threw everyone for a loop, but prior to COVID, the attendance that you had for all your job fairs and for your network, your is it the networking mixers? Is that what they in various places in the Bay Area? I remember you had a lot of networking mixers where you had people meet up and just kind of go to like a bar, like a restaurant or something like that, and like spend time together. Is that what's that going to look like with COVID? Actually, I never asked you that.
Yeah, so virtual campaigns, actually. So it'll end up being that virtual events will be, and virtual platforms will be what it ends up becoming. And so, we're hosting a career fair on March 3rd, 2021. We've partnered up with a really great platform called Hire, Higre.
Okay.
And so it'll be a 6-hour career fair between 1 and 7 p.m. And, anyone and everyone can do it right from the comfort of their own home office. And so you'll be able to sit at your desk at home and still be able to, hunt for a job. And so we're looking for everyone from startups to larger companies to nonprofits to really fill out our ranks for companies that are interested in hiring people. And so, the last big career fair we had was in September of 2019, right before this whole pandemic happened. We had something like 5,000 RSVPs.
I think I worked
about
that one.
1,500.
I think I was.
You did,
yeah,
you did.
That.
Yeah. And, you remember how big that whole entire career fair was.
I just remember how hot it was in there. It was
we had a line out the door around the corner, and, we're hoping to replicate that and get people in. So it'll be great.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah. I can't wait for, the virtual events are awesome. And I think that even after, we're out of this whole COVID thing and we're able to have face-to-face, events again. I think the virtual events are going to be big even after that. But I really did like the career fairs that Albertslist hosted. They're always fun, so much energy, so many bright and fun people go to those career fairs. So much.
Look,
so
there
much
are people who show up to my events and resume events and all of these things who are much smarter than I am, right? Like, I was doing a resume review with our recruiter back in October, and here's this person who shows up with a PhD in material science, right? So they're into the whole thing where they're creating the materials that will be that go into our tables and all of this kind of stuff.
Right.
And they've written all these papers. They have these advanced dissertations, and me and this recruiter are looking at this resume and we're like, wow. We're sure that some place is going to love to have you given what you know.
Yeah.
And so, I'm just a marketer who knows how to write and express myself and articulate myself. But, it's these people who have these PhDs who are the real MVP. They're the ones that are carrying our society forward. They're the ones creating things that we all never know what we really will need until we need it. And so, yeah, it's amazing like that.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it. You are working with the future of humanity, which is a corny way to put it, but is absolutely true. I think especially being in the Bay Area, the cradle, the cradle of innovation there is definitely for me, it was the events were humbling, is what it was. It's just every single time I went there and I saw the wealth of just potential at those places. I did not meet a PhD in material sciences, but I wish I had. But even another thing is just the conversations that I had with the different companies that were represented at the career fairs too. There's some things I learned about bigger companies that were present that I didn't know in the past either. And so it's and I know that we really do focus a lot on the job seekers that are a part of the Albertslist community, but I mean the recruiters and the hiring managers that are part of Albertslist are awesome too. Because we have recruiters that are basically just they're our friends. They're just people that are that have been around for a long time that we're friends with, and they also happen to use Albertslist. But first and foremost, they're just buddies. I remember.
That's recruiters are people too, and so that's one of the other big benefits is that recruiters reach out for conversations just to talk. I have I believe it's the CEO of the company who runs or created the whole concept of WordPress, or maybe she's the marketing director. Okay. She reached out to me over chat the other day, and she was like, "Hey, I need you to share a message with your job search community." She had mentioned to me that a lot of job seekers just weren't following directions, and it was terrible. And, it was costing a lot of job seekers the ability to move forward. And it was just a really cool, casual conversation. And, it was really cool to have that, because it was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And, I went ahead and made the post, and that was cool for what it was. And so these are the kinds of conversations I get to have, and it's just really cool, because it really brings in and illuminates why having those relationships are important.
Absolutely. And I working with Albert's List is like just from my perspective, it's just like an educational experience for me. Like the amount of information that I get from it, just browsing through is really what I'm there for. I mean, that like it's the education mixed with just kind of like the fun of talking to a lot of really bright people. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm super happy to be part of the Albert's List team. And this will be something like I'll be talking about Albert's List a lot going forward with different podcast episodes. But yeah, I think this episode for today, I think we can basically just close it out. But do you have any last things that you want to mention?
Yeah, thank you again for having me on here. And, I know that for anyone listening, right, the job search is hard. I and Tyler, we're both here rooting for you no matter where you are in that journey. And if you want to join us at Albert's List, I'm sure you'll have it in the show notes. But, bit.ly/find your next job, really easy to memorize and remember. And come in and join us, introduce yourself, and, put yourself around people who are there to support you, and make them a part of your network. And once again, thank you for having me here.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I mean, we'll be talking on Albert's List going forward. But for everyone listening, check out the link in the podcast description, and just take a look at Albert's List. It's a really fun place. Thanks again, Albert.